I got to laugh with the idiots who come in and start telling me that there are 1.5 billion Muslims in the world, they are outbreeding us all, and they want us all to submit to Allah. And immediately they start talking about terrorism, wife beating, genital mutilation, and whatnot else. And they start telling me that I have to be afraid. Very, very afraid, because with 1.5 billion Muslims, it is only a matter of time before they do actually take over the world. And then where would we be? And I point out that, of course, in a group as big as that, there inevitably are going to be people at all sorts of personal levels. There are going to be absolutely brilliant, honest, decent people on the one hand, and the most evil, nasty scumbags on the other hand. And I have always said that I will judge a Muslim on their own personal merit and nothing else. I'm certainly not going to judge them on the basis that, hey, this person is a Muslim and therefore I'm going to assume this, that and the other. I then point out that there are, in fact, Muslim sects such as, for example, Sufism, that are almost pacifistic in their outlook on how to relate to the rest of the world. And then the funniest arguments come into play, because at that point people point out that Sufism is only 0.16% of the Muslim population. Never mind the fact that that means that they are willing to ignore the pacifism of about 2 million people. The other point is that there are clearly therefore Muslims that are not aggressive, and that cannot be ignored. But it's not just Sufism, of course. There are many other Muslims in the world that are not belligerent, that are in no way inclined to take over the world. As Anna Cantervat, Andy pointed out, the Javans, for example. There's 100 million of them. There is people in Bosnia, Herzegovina, in Turkey, in Algeria, in Morocco even, who would not be inclined to want to take over the world. And then you get the funniest counter-argument posted by these people. They then, in all honesty, tell you that such people are not true Muslims. Contrast that with their own earlier statement that 1.5 billion Muslims are trying to take over the world. If you start subtracting the Javans, the Bosnians, the Turks, the Moroccans, and so on and so forth from that equation, how many true Muslims are there? How many Muslims are there actually who actually do want to subjugate the whole world? There's certainly not 1.5 billion of them. I would actually assume that there are probably just a few million of them. Now don't get me wrong. A few million belligerent, fanatic, extremist assholes build up to a huge problem that needs to be dealt with. But are they taking over the world? Far from it. They stand no chance whatsoever. And that is the basis for my assertion that with regard to Islam, we have nothing to worry about. That doesn't mean that atrocities will not happen. That doesn't mean that some of us are going to have to face, and have already faced, tragic loss as a result of terrorist attacks and so on and so forth. And those tragedies are by no means diminished by this fact that we have nothing to worry about. But as a culture, as a civilization, as a whole, we seriously do have nothing to worry about. If our civilization was not strong enough to withstand such attacks, it would, in my opinion, not be worth defending.